Sainz slams Ferrari. Ferrari's performance at the Red Bull Ring, where they finished second and sixth, originally second and fourth before Sainz being one of the drivers penalised, initially might have seemed disappointing to their fans back in Maranello. However, considering the circumstances, this outcome could be viewed as quite positive. This is the team's first podium finish since the Baku Grand Prix in April, and surprisingly only their second of the season. Despite finishing behind the leaders, Ferrari's car emerged as the second best in terms of performance on the track, both at the Red Bull Ring and the previous race in Canada. Moreover, Charles Leclerc showed promising signs of his old form during this event. His performance hasn't been as consistent as his teammate Carlos Sainz's in the SF23 this season, but his qualifying round on Friday and his final run in the main race, where Sergio Perez failed to gain on him, offered hopeful indications. However, it's still unclear whether these developments are indicative of a steady progression towards the top. Ferrari's gap with the leading Red Bull is still substantial, and it remains to be seen if they can close this gap. Carlos Sainz was also in the spotlight this weekend. Despite being demoted to 6th place due to post-race penalties, his determined effort to fend off Perez greatly assisted Leclerc. This resilience makes him a winner in my eyes, regardless of the official standings. But he was disappointed after the race due to a pit stop that he felt compromised his day, turning a potential podium finish into a 6th place result at the Red Bull Ring. However, Ferrari team boss Fred Vasseur defended the team's strategy, stating they were confident that it was the right decision. The circumstances came to a head when Nico Hulkenberg's VF23 stalled, triggering a virtual safety car at the end of lap 14. However, the VSC was called when the top three drivers, Max Verstappen and Ferrari's own Charles Leclerc and Sainz, were already in the final sector. At the moment the VSC message was delivered, Sainz was manoeuvring turn 9 just before the pit lane entry. Leclerc, who was slightly ahead of Sainz on the track, initially received instructions to pit, only for them to be quickly rescinded as it became evident that he had already passed the pit entrance. Both Sainz and Leclerc were called in for a pit stop at the end of the next lap. Leclerc managed to come out in second place, but the end of the VSC, combined with slow pit stops for both drivers, resulted in Sainz falling behind Lewis Hamilton and Lando Norris, who were able to pit immediately after the VSC was deployed. This sequence of events not only cost Sainz several seconds to Leclerc, but he also attributed his 5-second penalty for violating track limits to the unfortunate timing of the pit stop. And even though Sainz managed to finish within 5 seconds of third place Sergio Perez, Perez didn't have to press after he had overtaken Sainz, and Sainz was facing additional penalties regardless. "I was very quick on the first and second stints," Sainz reflected. Obviously, the second stint was already compromised by the first stop and pitting behind Charles, catching the virtual safety car ending, which meant we lost 6 or 7 seconds of race time. It meant we lost positions to cars that I shouldn't have lost to, which meant then I had to push on the medium to overtake them and got the track limits penalty. My race was compromised from that point onwards. The massive number of post-race penalties also included an additional 10-second penalty for Sainz that demoted him from 4th to 6th. That penalty was for a series of additional offences, some of which were made during Sainz's push phase on the mediums, when he had to overtake Norris and Hamilton instead of focusing on protecting third place against Perez. "I will need to analyse what we could have done there, because clearly my race was compromised by that pit stop there," he said. "I guess the team had their reason to stop both cars. If not, I don't know why." Carlos Sainz also expressed some lingering annoyance regarding the early phase of the race. As per pre-race instructions, he had to follow his teammate Charles Leclerc instead of overtaking him, even though it appeared he had the speed to do so. Leclerc had earned the privilege of leading because he was ahead after the first lap, but this directive seemed to restrict Sainz's potential in the initial stages of the race. When asked by TV crews about Sainz's strategy criticism, team boss Vasseur said, "It's not an issue as long as we have a clear discussion after the race. I think it was the right call. When you're in the car, you don't have the whole picture. If you don't have it, you complain afterwards." It came at the end of what had been a solid weekend for Sainz, who had qualified third for the Grand Prix and had converted that same grid position into a sprint race podium on Saturday evening. In my opinion, while Ferrari's strategy call might not seem egregious, it did not pan out as expected. The reasoning behind it was evident, taking advantage of the virtual safety car to replace tyres or risk being undercut by most of the top 10. Hand on heart, really, as team boss Fred Vasseur pointed out, the timing was unfortunate. Had the VSC been initiated just 20 seconds earlier, for example, Ferrari could have pitted both Leclerc and Sainz, allowing them to rejoin the race in strong positions. Faster pit stops could have also improved their positions. However, choosing to pit on lap 15, particularly for the SF23, which is known for its heavy wear on tyres, was arguably early, and this decision led to a challenging middle stint for Sainz, who lost all the time he'd gained from the VSC pit stop as he had to slow down to let Leclerc pit first. A split strategy could have made more sense for Ferrari. They could have pitted Leclerc under the VSC as they did, but left Sainz on track with Verstappen, allowing him to build a tyre offset to compensate for any lost position. This might have prevented Sainz from incurring the time penalties that he attributes to the early pit stop. Although it's impossible to determine the impact such a strategy could have had, it's clear that Sainz is not satisfied with his current results, which he believes do not reflect his pace. He feels that strategic decisions significantly contribute to this discrepancy. Until Sainz sees consistent favourable results, he's likely to continue feeling compromised by the team's strategy, and given the circumstances, his sentiment is arguably justified. Ferrari have proven that they can be competitive, as Leclerc comfortably finished ahead of Perez, giving the team in red that long-awaited podium spot. While yes, it would have been much better had Sainz been on P3 as well, the Maranello team have a good basis to work upon and bring more upgrades to the car to be even more competitive. We are starting to see good battle now for the second best team on the grid, and Ferrari must be considered a Mercedes and Aston Martin rival. Despite higher than expected tyre degradation on the day, Ferrari seem to manage the issue effectively. While there is still a considerable performance gap with Red Bull, Ferrari's ability to mitigate major fluctuations in race performance suggests they can consistently outperform Mercedes and Aston Martin moving forward. Looking ahead, Ferrari is preparing for the races at Silverstone, which is part of a back-to-back race weekend happening in a hectic July, with 4 Grand Prix events in 5 weeks. The materials and strategies for the British race have already been determined back at their headquarters in Maranello. Ferrari plans to introduce an update to the SF23's rear diffuser, in addition to the package used in Austria, aiming to improve the car's overall aerodynamics. These enhancements have been specifically designed for the high-speed corners of the historic English circuit, which have traditionally been challenging for the prancing horse. Silverstone will also see the introduction of new Pirelli tyres. The Milan-based tyre manufacturer has developed a stiffer construction to withstand the increased downforce of the 2023 cars, which reached a load threshold earlier than expected, originally projected for the end of the season. These new tyres, which retain the same compounds, were previously tested during practice sessions at the Circuit de Catalunya in Spain. However, it remains to be seen how these new tyres will impact the performance of the cars. Pirelli anticipates no surprises, but the real test will be the actual performance on track. The Silverstone Grand Prix, with its high-speed corners and new tyres, will be a true indicator of the progress made by Ferrari. What do you think? Can Ferrari become the second best team on the grid in the near future, or will the strategic disagreements hinder their progress moving forward? Let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below, and thank you for watching Racing Zone. Till next time.